Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Friday, August 30th. Today is day 329 since October 7th. In terms of Gaza, the World Health Organization yesterday reached an agreement with Israel to temporarily allow for a pause in fighting to allow for the distribution of polio vaccines. The campaign will begin this Sunday, allowing for a humanitarian pause. It will be from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. in very distinct regions of Gaza, local time. It'll happen for 3 days. The goal is to vaccinate 640,000 children under the ages of 10 years old. Israel's emphasized this is not the first step to a ceasefire. The Washington Post reported this morning that Israel struck an aid convoy that was organized by a U.S. humanitarian group. 5 people were killed. CMEP knows the group very well. It's called ANERA. ANERA stands for the American Near East Refugee Aid. This was described as a shocking incident. ANERA said in a statement today, those killed were from a local transportation company. There's currently more details being sought about the incident. The convoy was delivering medical supplies and fuel to an Emirati-run hospital in Rafah in Gaza. The route of the convoy had been coordinated ahead of time with the Israeli Defense Forces. The ANERA convoy was carrying medical supplies. The Israeli military fired a missile. 5 people were killed in the lead vehicle of the aid convoy. The military claimed that they believed that the convoy had been hijacked by militants. The military also said it killed a top Hamas commander and 2 other fighters today in large-scale operations that were being carried out. These types of horrific incidents and attacks on aid workers have happened numerous times over the last week or so. It was reported in the New York Times that Israel told the U.S. that it blamed Tuesday's incident in which Israeli troops fired on the World Food Program vehicle, a communications error between 2 different military units. The simple fact is, in almost 11 months into this conflict, such incidents remain all too common. The U.S. Ambassador Robert Wood told the UN Security Council yesterday in the New York Times. Relatives of Israeli hostages rushed towards the Gaza border yesterday before turning back at the request of Israeli security forces in their latest high-profile protest demanding a ceasefire. And I'd encourage you to watch. We put together a video summarizing some of the displacements that have happened in Gaza over the last 10 plus months. In just the last month, Israeli authorities issued an additional 16 evacuation orders for neighborhoods throughout Gaza, impacting over 250,000 civilians. Since the onset of hostilities in October, upwards of 88% of Gaza has been placed under evacuation orders, displacing roughly 90% of the population, much of which has been displaced repeatedly, time and time again. Civilians in Gaza have been increasingly forced to relocate to al-Mawasi, the area that Israeli authorities unilaterally designated a humanitarian zone. Prior to October, the population density of the area was around 1,200 people per square kilometer. As a consequence of these repeated evacuation orders, the resulting mass displacement, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OSHA, now estimates that al-Mawasi's population density has increased to 30,000 to 34,000 individuals per square kilometer. 34,000 people per square kilometer. That's a 25-fold increase because of all these displacements. In a leaked U.S. Embassy memo that was obtained by NPR, it shows that Washington is urging Israel's military to stop mass evacuation orders, driving the repeated displacement of Gazan civilians. For the first time since the war began, Israel's military yesterday withdrew evacuation orders and said that civilians could actually return to their homes in areas of central Gaza. So that happened in the last day. The IDF said that it has concluded a month-long operation in Han Yunis and Deir al-Balah, and that it has left areas, and it announced that residents in central and southern Gaza neighborhoods where Division 98 had operated could return to their homes, and it redesignated those areas as humanitarian zones. In the West Bank, the Israeli military continued its raid in the occupied West Bank for a second straight day yesterday. At least 5 people were killed. including a commander who led the local branch of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, according to the New York Times. Palestinian authorities' official news, Wafa, said 17 people had been killed in Israeli raids since Wednesday. A settler opened fire towards a group of Palestinians who threw stones at his car while driving on a road in the West Bank in the town of Hawara, a security source reported to Haaretz. And the UK expressed deep concern about the ongoing IDF operations in the occupied West Bank. The statement strongly condemned settler violence and inciting remarks such as those made by Israel's National Security Minister Ben-Gvir. The UN Secretary General Guterres called on Israel to immediately halt its operations in the West Bank, saying it was fueling an already explosive situation. The EU Foreign Policy Chief Borrell yesterday proposed sanctioning Israeli ministers for hate speech and incitement of war crimes. Yemen's Houthis yesterday released footage showing its fighters setting off blasts on the oil tanker that's in the Red Sea. The vessel was abandoned earlier after the militant group repeatedly attacked it. And Senator Sanders has pledged a resolution to block $20 billion of U.S. arms sales to Israel. There will be another shipment of military weapons and planes that has to come before Congress to get approval, and I will lead the effort to try to stop that, Senator Sanders said yesterday, telling an audience in his home state of Vermont that he will lead the effort. There will be another effort. He said this at the Brattleboro Senior Center for an event that was hosted by the Independent Senator's Office. At this point, Senator Sanders has not yet called for a vote on the withholding of these arms, but he has promised to do so eventually. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris told CNN in her first interview as the 2024 Democratic presidential nominee that she would not alter Biden's administration's policies on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the Gaza war, stressing the need to secure a ceasefire hostage deal. I also wanted to let you know CMEP put out a statement this week condemning the escalation of settler violence and illegal land confiscation in the West Bank. We were talking specifically about some of the incidents happening in the Beit Jala area. Please read that statement. I encourage you to do so and write letters to your local newspapers about these incidents, how horrific the situation in Gaza is, these incursions into the West Bank, the death toll of civilians. The violence cannot be allowed to continue. Use your voices to engage in social advocacy, to demand change, bring pressure towards the global movement calling for a permanent, lasting, and comprehensive ceasefire and peace. Might it come quickly, and might God go before us. In the name of Christ, amen.